You are Locked On Lions Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, there we go. Welcome into a live Locked On Lions Postcast. I'm your host, Jake Rietma. 31-29, the final, a huge road divisional win over a very good Minnesota Vikings team, one that went down to the wire, and Jake Bates boots it through from 44 yards out to seal the win, and then it's a nice defensive pressure and sacks on the last play of the game. You love to see it. We got a lot to talk about. One of Jared Goff's best game. He continues to play at an elite level. Jahmyr Gibbs was fantastic on the ground, and then the receiving play of Amon-Ra St. and Kalif Raymond. So much to get into. We'll do it all next on a live Locked On Lions Postcast. As always, great to be with you, and we thank you for making the Locked On Lions Postcast your post-game destination. Shout out to the everydayers. Miss everybody on the Locked On Tigers postcast, obviously, but so fired up to be back on a Locked On Lions postcast. Shout out to Matt Derry on the Locked On Lions every day, and everybody that's checking him out every day as we continue to cover the most exciting team in the NFC North, the Detroit Lions. So thanks as always for making Locked On Lions postcast your first listen every day. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, on YouTube, it's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode of the Locked On Lions Postcast is brought to you by Hillsdale College. That's right. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked-on to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. Tons of great online offerings. Hillsdale.edu/locked-on to enroll. No cost, and it's easy to get started. Where to begin with this one? I think we just work through it from the way this game started. As slow of a start as we've seen from a Dan Campbell-led Detroit Lions team in quite some time, and you're playing in a hostile environment. The crowd's into it early. You have a quick 3-and-out, the failed fake punt. The Vikings score on the second play from scrimmage, and it feels like this was tinkering on the verge of a rout in that first quarter because the Lions couldn't get a first down. I mean, the first down of this Lions offense, this high-potent, high-powered offense, came on the final play of the first quarter. And fortunately, I think the Lions deserve a lot of credit, especially defensively, for kind of weathering the storm and limiting the damage and really just playing damage control in that first quarter because, man, as soon as the clock sounded, the horn sounded concluding the first quarter, it was like a different team in that second quarter. I mean, you're looking at 21 unanswered by this Lions offense, back-to-back touchdown drives, and then they continued it in the third quarter. But there was a period of time in which this Lions offense, just like we saw the previous game against the Cowboys and the previous game against the Seattle Seahawks, looked unstoppable. Ben Johnson's play calling was on point. You're distributing it amongst a number of different weapons. And, you look at the box score and so many guys contributing, and the broadcast crew, Adam Admin and Greg Olson, talking about how many guys you have to defend on this Lions offense. And finally, I think when Kalif Raymond scored his first touchdown of the season, you realize, that's another guy that they've got in the arsenal. But final line for Amon-Ra St. really good. 8 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs was phenomenal on the ground. 15 carries, 116 yards, better than 7 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. And Gibbs' first touchdown run, I think that kind of helped spark this Lions team and wake them up a little bit because, yes, anytime you get a big run, that's going to, bring the momentum and get guys to start believing. But that play was blocked so perfectly. And I put this down in my notes. You guys know I'm a big note taker, but great downfield blocking by both Tim Patrick and Jameson Williams. So Jameson Williams had a quiet day receiving, but just the one catch for -4 yards. But he made sure to get in on the action as a blocking receiver. We talk all the time about how willing this team is to block on the edge, on the perimeter, and you saw it. And then the shake that Jahmyr Gibbs made on Bynum, I mean, that is putting him in the spin cycle and just really embarrassing him. I mean, the jock strap goes flying. Yeah, that is how you shake and bake with the ball in the open field, and one of many things that makes Jahmyr Gibbs so good. So other plays in that first half that really stood out to me when you look at the scoring summary, coming right back, Amon-Ra St. Brown's touchdown, the second touchdown of the game for the Lions that put them up 14-10. Goff looking off the safety. And I put this in my notes with Jared Goff that not only is he so talented physically, but when you play a Brian Flores defense like the Vikings that have so many different blitz coverages, so many different ways to disguise the blitz, Brian Flores known for being a blitzing defense. Goff was a step ahead many times in pointing out, diagnosing coverages, and that second touchdown, his first of the day, the pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown was an example of how the Vikings had 7 guys up around the line of scrimmage. Goff changed the play and allowed put his offense in a position to be really successful, where you get matched up on single coverage, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he's going to take full advantage of that. So love seeing that as well. And then just Goff's ability to run the offense, be really good, even under pressure, was, very much at the forefront of what we saw today, completing his first 15 passes. He has been on some streak starting games, going all the way back to that game against Arizona. He did the same thing against Seattle and the same thing against the Cowboys. It's just on point. And even though that offense was sputtering in the first quarter with some quick 3 and outs, that second quarter was so good, and the Lions were able to take that 21-10 lead into the second half. Now, into the third quarter, the Vikings weren't going to go away. They weren't going to lay over, especially at home. They weren't just going to let the Lions, come into their building and put a whooping on them the way they did to the Cowboys. So I put this in the notes, that touchdown from Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson, it's just, he runs that fade route from the slot position, and they move him around. Kevin O'Connell for the Vikings does such a good job in moving Justin Jefferson around and getting creative. I think that's why you're seeing Sam Darnold have a lot of success in his tenure with the Minnesota Vikings, where he hadn't been successful in other offenses, because Kevin O'Connell is such a good play caller and does a good job to put his guys in position to succeed. So I think that's what you saw in that first touchdown drive from the Vikings and to start the third quarter. Now, fast forward to the fourth quarter. This Lions defense deserves a lot of credit for halting Vikings drives and holding them to touchdowns. After the Justin Jefferson touchdown, they hold the Vikings to a Richard 42-yard field goal that made it 28-20. You got to give the Vikings kicking game a lot of credit, because Reichard was really, really good. I think he's connected on something like his first 20 field goals to start his career. And, coming out of Alabama, has been really good kicking the ball for the Minnesota Vikings. But a couple of field goals, making it 28-23. And we all know what happened there when the Vikings took the lead. David Montgomery, not his best game. And, he went out early with the injury to the knee, and I'm not making excuses for him, but that is one of the many luxuries when you have two guys that are so potent out of the backfield. Sometimes it is a feed the hot hand kind of day, and Jahmyr Gibbs had the hot hand today over David Montgomery. But that fumble, the Vikings are going to make plays. Like I said, that's one of the best defenses in the National Football League, so they get the punch out and return that back. Now, this Lions offense didn't get it back right away, and that's where the defense comes in. And I wrote this down with Jack Fox. After the Lions went 3 and out, Jack Fox, man, that punt flipping the field was a sneaky momentum builder for the Lions, because all of a sudden now the Vikings take over deep in their own territory. The defense gets the 3 and out, and you get the ball back, 2:32 to go, 2 timeouts plus the 2-minute warning, and voila, Jared Goff and company march down the field. It started with a couple of nice runs from Jahmyr Gibbs, get the confidence going, and that final drive, and obviously they were playing the clock more than anything, forcing the Vikings to utilize those timeouts and setting up Bates for the game-winning field goal. But that, when you had to have it, this Lions offense gave it to you today, and at times they didn't look great, but man, going on the road against a good Vikings team, very gritty win, and you just love to see it from this Lions team. So we're going to get to all the comments. I want to make sure we're as collaborative as we can here on a live Locked On Lions postcast. 5-1, now in first in the NFC North, with the Vikings also being 5-1, but obviously the Lions getting that tiebreaker, and you feel good about where this Lions team is at, because man, even though the bye week came early, since the bye week, you got the big win over the Cowboys and absolutely blowing their doors off 47-9. And then you take down the Vikings on the road in a big divisional win. And up next, the Titans come to town at Ford Field before another big matchup in division on the road at Lambeau Field against the Packers. But we won't go through the entire schedule. Just wanted to point it out there that, hey, this was one that feels really, really good to get because it's in somebody else's barn, hostile environment. You clearly didn't have your best stuff early in that game. You overcome the adversity in the first quarter. You put together 3 really good quarters of football. When you had to have plays made by both the defense and the offense, they made those plays. Obviously, you'd like to go without that fumble by Montgomery that was returned for a touchdown. But over the course of a 60-minute football game, there's going to be adverse plays that happen. It's all about how you respond. And this Lions team responded in a big way. Don't go anywhere. We are going to take your comments and continue discussing a thrilling win for the Detroit Lions, 31-29. I want to talk more about Jared Goff on the other side of this break, as well as taking your comments. We hear from you next on the live Locked On Lions postcast. This episode of the Locked On Lions postcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Look, Halloween's coming up, and we like to have some fun, right, with what scares us. What about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. And if you're thinking of starting therapy again, give BetterHelp a try because it's entirely online. It's convenient. We all know how busy we are. And look, we've all been through a lot of things in this life. Therapy is a great way to kind of cope with them and talk to a licensed therapist at the convenience of your own schedule with those flexible hours that can be suited to everything you've got going. So overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. This episode of the Locked On Lions postcast is also brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely and improve yourself? How about that? We're talking history, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. And did you study these in high school? Probably not. And even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed, as have a lot of things. But what hasn't changed is the basic, fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Now, here are just a few of the courses available at Hillsdale College. You got Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and a brand new documentary style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. All of Hillsdale courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in whenever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. I know I'm checking out that Constitution 101, the meaning and the history of the U.S. Constitution. So go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. Right now, hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. We go to the people after a thrilling win for the Detroit Lions on this live Locked On Lions postcast, 31-29 over the Minnesota Vikings. Appreciate everybody tuning in and making the Locked On Lions postcast your post-game destination. You gotta love it. All right, Rufus T-Cat is up first. What a day. The game was so fun to watch. Pure grit. Favorite player Gibbs did his thing today, and the boys held the line for Hutch. We ain't going nowhere. Number one, America's team. Yeah, I thought at times you felt the absence of Aiden Hutchinson when Sam Darnold had success. It was when he had time to throw. But down the stretch was really great to see this Lions team get some pressure, and I think fitting the way the game ended rather with that sack for the Lions. Nowaski, that's right. He's a Saginaw Valley guy, so shout out to him. And I believe Salem High School in Michigan. So Nowaski gets the sack to end it, and it was fitting that the way this Lions team earned that win down the stretch was very fitting of a Dan Campbell team and just laying the smackdown, even though it was kind of funky the way that it worked out, where the Vikings had that spike and then it seemed like time had run out, but they called it, instead of a procedure penalty, they said it was an illegal formation penalty, which is why you didn't have the runoff. Because I was thinking it should be a runoff, but it was not. Malcolm Rodriguez, I thought, played well. He had a sack. Jack Campbell had a sack. Trevor Nowaski, the sack to end it, and Josh Paschal as well. So those guys are going to have to continue to step up for this Detroit Lions team. There is no doubt about it. Teddy Roll is up next. Great win, and the defense did enough to slow down their high-powered offense. 10th fourth quarter comeback win for Goff. Yeah, that was really good. When you had to have it from Jared Goff, he delivered. Demetrius McNeil is up next. It was the heavyweight fight that we are going to see in Week 18 between those two teams. I'm down with that. Whatever happened to Michigan in yesterday's loss to Illinois, now they're unranked. Yeah, we don't need to get into all the Michigan stuff. That was tough to watch. DJ is up next. Bates Motel, baby. There you go. Great story of Jake Bates from the UFL now to a Detroit Lion, coming through with the clutch field goal. And there we go. I also thought too with Bates that it showed a lot of belief in him, where once the Lions had that pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown to get them close to the 20-yard line, they were more interested in leaving the Vikings with no time. And I understand that clock management, but it also puts the pressure on your kicker of, hey, we're not going to get any closer. We know you can stick a 44-yarder, and we're just going to take knees the rest of the way, force Minnesota to use their timeouts and then run it down under 20 seconds, which is exactly what you saw. So the Lions go to 5-1, Vikings also at 5-1, but the Lions with the tiebreaker. AFB, I was getting lightheaded from the anxiety at the end of the game. Yeah, that'll happen. Who among us hasn't? Clee Shreen, I'm willing to trade a 2025 and 2027 first-round pick for Crosby. Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit in last Sunday's Locked On Lions postcast. It'll be interesting to see what Brad Holmes does. Maybe not somebody with as high of an asking price as Max Crosby or a Myles Garrett, maybe as Darius Smith from the Browns. I also saw today that Deshaun Watson went out with the Browns. So not that their season wasn't over before, but that could be a team to look to trade with. Maritime Adams up next. Thankfully, Monty was able to come back into the game. Also sad to see Laporta quiet. Yeah, Laporta, listen, I get that. And, nobody cares about my fantasy team, but Laporta's on my fantasy team, so we could use a little production there. And he has had a quiet season other than the trick play against the Cowboys, where he had that long touchdown catch, and he had the one big catch where he pulled it off the turf on one of those third downs. The Lions were really good on third down today. He finishes with just the one catch. That's the one catch he had for 25 yards. But you look at how many different ways this team can beat you. And sometimes, what did Ben Johnson say? There's a lot of mouths to feed. And at the end of the day, I don't think anyone on this team is concerned about individual accolades as long as you get the victory. And that's what the Lions did today. I thought the Lions were better on third down. I guess I'm looking at the stats right now, 4 of 10. But it seemed like of those 4 conversions, a couple of them were absolutely huge in the point of the game. Okay, up next, we've got Dennis says, go Lions. Jason Walters says a win is a win. Absolutely. All right. Clee Shreen says, so glad we have to win, but Hutch missing was so terribly evident. This is a 3-score win for the Lions with Hutch there. They need an elite pass rusher for this defense to work and to get to a Super Bowl. I had lots to break down there. I'll disagree that the defense, one player makes a 3-touchdown difference, because Hutch isn't scoring any touchdowns for the Lions. It's not to take anything away from the Lions, because I completely agree. This Lions team does need to add at the defensive end and the edge rusher position. to help with this pass rush and to help this defense overall, because that is so paramount in today's NFL. You got to have somebody that can get to the quarterback. Quarterback receivers are too good. They will, if they have time to throw, they will find ways to beat you, especially if this Lions team is to, and make no mistake about it, the expectations for this Lions team are definitely a Super Bowl. There we go. All right. Who else we got? We got Daniel in the chat. He says, hello, everyone. And we continue to get you ready for Lions, or we continue to take your comments on this live Locked On Lions postcast. And it's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. Lions beat the Minnesota Vikings 31-29. And it's a Jake Bates go-ahead 44-yard field goal. And then at the end, the defense makes enough plays. I also liked how the defense played that, where you knew that with no timeouts, they had to get the ball down the field. And Aaron Glenn dropped everybody. There was nobody rushing the passer in that portion, or that second to last play. And yes, they got the completion up to around midfield and had to run everybody up there. I still think the clock ran out and it should have been game over, but they say they got the spike down with 1 second left. And then on the final play of the game, it was Nowoski with the sack. All right, we're going to tie a bow on this one. Look ahead to the Titans, who's next for the Detroit Lions, and continue to take your comments. It's all coming up on a live Locked On Lions postcast. Thanks so much, as always, for tuning in. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. This episode of the Locked On Lions postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right, NFL fans, listen up. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. And it's all on the same page where you place your bets. FanDuel.com, it's more than just a sportsbook. You can check out live odds, and you can see things like play-by-play, game stats, and so much more. It's your one-stop shop. It's all you need. And right now, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com and make it happen. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. What a win for the Detroit Lions, who moved to 5-1. Jared Goff was special. Some other notes I made on Jared Goff: the final drive, he was really, really good, aided with the luxury of Jahmyr Gibbs and just so many weapons on this offense. And I thought, as you look at the play-by-play of that final drive, again, I mentioned getting it started with Jahmyr Gibbs on the ground, and then you use the 2-minute warning, and you look at how this Detroit Lions team was able to really take it to the Vikings on that final drive when it was crunch time, when it mattered the most. You get the Gibbs run, and then you get down to the 2-minute warning, and then off right tackle for 14 yards. Now you're moving. Nice little swing pass out to Jahmyr Gibbs. We know he can be so damaging in the passing game as well as a receiver. He's really good there. That was another 16-yard chunk. Just chunk plays, stay in front of the chains, and eventually get into field goal range, force the Vikings to use their timeouts and run off the rest of the clock. That is the formula for a clutch game-winning drive. Don't forget about the pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown for 14 yards to get to the Minnesota 22-yard line. And at that point, it was kneel the ball, run the clock, and take the life out of US Bank Stadium, which I got to say, when that game started and everybody's doing the skull, and, I have not been to US Bank Stadium. Shout out to my grandparents. They were there today. They always make the trip. And it just looks like one of the best atmospheres in the NFL, way behind Ford Field, obviously, but they do a good job there, and they were rocking early, and why wouldn't they be with all that they had going on? Okay, Titans are up next. The Titans are really struggling. I believe they lost again. Yeah, they did lose to the Bills today. It's a 1-win football team, but it's any given Sunday in the National Football League. You certainly can't take them lightly because, you know what? just when you think you're untouchable, that's when somebody jumps up and bites you in the what. A couple other comments to get to. Lions bad guy on fan Johnny K. Okay, I said it every Detroit Lions live I could find while the game was going on. Sometimes you got to hit in a fight to know that you're in a fight to win a fight. That's what the Detroit Lions did. I think I get what you're saying there. They were in a fight. And it's a divisional battle. Listen, the Vikings were undefeated coming in 5-0, and they earned that. I mean, that's a very, very good football team. It's a well-coached football team, and they have a lot of weapons, starting with Justin Jefferson, that can beat you. I can't believe I've gone this long without giving a shout-out to Brian Branch. Man, was he good again today. And I know that fumble return for a touchdown was called back. They said, I believe it was, who was it? No, it wasn't Addison. They said he was out of bounds, but Branch had that awesome interception in the first half. That's kind of what helped continue to turn the tide after that rough start. Jalen Naylor, my apologies, but Naylor fumbled it and his foot was out of bounds before that, because that could have really turned the game around. Because the Lions, that would have made it 27-10, I believe, or 28-10. And instead, the Vikings go down and score. It's a brand new game. We know how close it got down the stretch, with the Vikings even taking a late fourth quarter lead before the Lions come back to get the win. But Branch was so good. And not only yes, of course, the interception is going to be the play that stands out, but he was so good in coverage too. Brian Branch is that guy you can asked to do so many different things defensively, and he just has such a versatile skill set to be able to do a lot of different things that Aaron Glenn asked him to do. Run support, coverage, and even man-on-man coverage as a safety is spectacular. And obviously his ball skills with his third interception in 2 games, you'll love to see that. So all in all, even though the defense gave up the 29 points, I mean, technically with the one defensive touchdown, it was more like 23. And, they held strong on that 2-point conversion as well. That's a big play, because if they get that 2-point conversion, then obviously the Lions need a touchdown to win on the final drive or a field goal ties it. And maybe we're still playing or you're playing for overtime at that point. But all is definitely well with this Detroit Lions team. A gritty win on the road. Couple more comments to get to here. Maritime Adams, crazy how many people that I know still don't know Tim Patrick is. Yeah, Tim Patrick, another couple of catches for him where he's just sliding in nicely as that number 3 wide receiver, maybe number 4 if you want to count Khalif Raymond. But Tim Patrick today, 2 catches for 25 yards. I mentioned the downfield blocking. And I think, if you take nothing else from today's game, it really is an example of a team that has a ton of ways to beat you. And so many guys that perform in a complementary fashion as a unit, and both offensively and defensively. It's never one superstar. It is a collection of very talented guys that work together and play together to be a dang good team that's at the top of the NFC North. And I don't think anybody wants to play right now. This Lions team is thriving at 5-1. And hey, we're thriving on the Locked On Lions postcast, because that is what we do. I want to thank everybody for making this your first listen. Now for your second listen, you got to find the new Locked On NFL now, with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And of course, Locked On Lions with my main man, Matt Derry. Shout out to him. I know his guards got eliminated. Tough there on the baseball side of things, but we are all in on the Detroit Lions. Not that we weren't before, but man, this has been a fun and exciting season. High expectations. It'll be interesting to see if and when the Lions make a move for the help at the defensive end and the edge rusher position to replace the injured Aiden Hutchinson. And I know our hopes are that if this Lions team were to go to the Super Bowl, that maybe miraculously Aiden Hutchinson could join them for the final game of the season. But we will wait and see on that. For now, it's the Tennessee Titans up next at Ford Field. Can't take them lightly any given Sunday, but a huge road win over the Minnesota Vikings. The Detroit Lions go to US Bank Stadium and win it with a late field goal from Jake Bates, 31-29, after a rough start, which Minnesota scored the first 10 points of the game, but did not matter. Jared Goff Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, and that offense come back with a vengeance, and the Lions win it 31-29. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this edition of the live Locked On Lions postcast. As always, I am your host, Jake Riepma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Riepma. Shout out to everybody in the chat and giving us your comments. We appreciate that, and we appreciate the support of our Locked On Sports Detroit page. So make sure you subscribe. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And as always, go ahead and like the video. That helps us out a great deal as well. And if you're listening on the audio only version, thanks for downloading and subscribing. And let's continue to ride this baby out. The Lions are, I think, the best team in the NFC North. I'll just go ahead. I mean, the best team in the NFC. At 5-1 in the NFC North, you just feel so good about where this Detroit Lions team is at. Tennessee Titans are up next. Enjoy Locked On Lions on the daily with Matt Derry, and we'll continue to keep you updated on our post-game destinations here on Locked On Sports Detroit. Make sure you subscribe, and as always, go Lions. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.